Earth, the field of presence. Functional orientation. Earth governs continuity under load. It sets the conditions that allow life to continue without persistent threat, collapse, or depletion, so life can proceed without constant effort to secure continuity. In the physical world, Earth is foundational. It is shaped by load and time. Where underlying conditions are sufficient, the foundation holds. Where they are not, it shifts, cracks, and gives way. Ground becomes dependable when it can bear weight, hold form, and support what is built upon it. Stability here is not stillness. It is the capacity to sustain pressure over time. In human life, Earth governs whether life registers as secure, or whether attention is pulled into maintaining continuity. Just as a physical foundation bears the weight of a structure, this field determines whether a person can carry the pressure of life, time, responsibility, and change without shutdown or constant internal bracing. Before an experience can be felt, acted on, or understood, the body must register that life can continue. Breath must continue, weight must land, and time must remain tolerable. Earth provides the condition that allows other functions to operate without distortion. It does not add meaning, emotion, or direction to experience. It determines whether those capacities can operate at all. Core Function 1. Continuity. At its most basic level, Earth governs biological continuity. It is experienced as the absence of a constant internal emergency. Survival here is the body's orientation toward what sustains it over time: food, shelter, rest, and reproduction. These are the biological impulses through which life continues. When this foundation is solid, the body carries a quiet assumption that life will continue. Functional continuity keeps survival signaling proportional. The body does not collapse into withdrawal where basic upkeep becomes difficult. Daily needs are met without dominating attention, and support registers as reliable rather than temporary. Enoughness is the signal that tells the body to stop securing and begin resting. With that signal online, attention is not pulled into constant checking, stockpiling, or control. Safety does not require repeated proof, and ordinary maintenance does not require force. A person can move through the day with workable capacity for upkeep without chronic bracing or shutdown. When this function is impaired, continuity no longer registers as secure, and the system turns toward concrete forms of security. A person can have stable housing and savings, and may still carry a persistent expectation of collapse. The external facts are stable, but that stability does not register internally. In this condition, resources feel provisional, and the body exhausts itself bracing for a disaster that never arrives. Attention narrows toward hypervigilance because safety does not land. The body can also shut down and stop securing. It contracts and withdraws participation in the maintenance of life. Ordinary requirements such as eating, washing, working, and keeping the home begin to feel disproportionately heavy, not because the tasks are difficult, but because the continuity drive is offline. The body does not register active threat. Instead, continuation registers as costing more than the available capacity. This is not reducible to mood. It is a structural drop in vital participation in life, where existence becomes something to endure rather than something the body can carry. Core Function 2. Stability. Stability is the system's capacity to carry the weight of life without structural collapse. Where continuity governs whether life can proceed, stability governs whether it can remain steady under pressure. Daily life places continuous demand on the body through time constraint, gravity, responsibility, and the ongoing maintenance of life. Stability determines whether that demand distributes across the whole structure or concentrates until failure occurs. Stability is not toughness or rigidity, it is load-bearing capacity. When stability is functional, daily obligation transfers through the system instead of being held as chronic bracing in the body. This function extends beyond the body into the weight of material necessity. The physical environment acts as an external structure for the nervous system. When space is ordered and resources are sufficient, the environment carries part of the survival load, reducing the amount the body must hold internally. When the environment is chaotic, cluttered, or under-resourced, the system must compensate. Clutter, hoarding, and disorder increase the baseline load. Routine tasks can carry extra weight before they even begin. When stability is compromised, structural capacity is overwhelmed by load. The structure becomes encumbered by ordinary tasks, not because they are dangerous, but because the available strength and reserve are insufficient to carry them. The result is avoidance, backlog, and delay, where basic maintenance is repeatedly deferred because it feels too heavy to lift. A secondary compensation is bracing. The structure stays upright by using bodily tension as a substitute for support. Injury, pain patterns, and physical trauma can drive this pattern, but it also appears without obvious injury. Tightening becomes the brace. Common signs include raised shoulders, jaw tension, and shallow breathing. The person functions by staying internally on. Relaxation registers as unsafe. When demand eases, the body cannot keep holding itself up with tension, and capacity drops. The structure is being held together by tension, not reserve. Core Function 3. Vitality. Vital regulation in Earth operates through cycles. Daily life requires intake, storage, and elimination. At this level, Earth regulates the physical cycle of what enters, what becomes reserve, and what clears. Vital regulation governs the available capacity of the body. Energy must be usable without depletion. Replenishment must restore what was spent. Reserve must exist, so ordinary life does not require borrowing from exhaustion. Intake in Earth is not just taking in resources, but taking in what the body can actually use. Functional intake allows support to register as nourishment. This includes food, water, breath, daylight, and regular contact with the ground and the natural world. When intake and movement are consistent and matched to demand, the body meets pressure without immediately borrowing from depletion, and recovery lands. When intake is strained, the body runs under-resourced and functions through short surges and rapid drain, often relying on urgency or stimulants. A common pattern is skipping meals, leaning on coffee or sugar, then feeling depleted even after eating. Storage is the capacity to build constitutional reserve over time, so energy and resources are not lived moment to moment. Storage strengthens when sleep is consistent, when nourishment rebuilds rather than stimulates, and when movement builds capacity rather than borrowing from depletion. Endurance becomes reliable over time. Reserve depends on the body's capacity to retain what it receives. Bodily bracing and chronic activation can drain capacity even at rest. When unnecessary expenditure decreases, the body can hold what it receives and convert input into durable tolerance. When storage is strained, recovery does not compound. Brief productivity is followed by crash. Elimination is an essential function that stabilizes the system. Physical stability depends as much on what leaves the body as on what enters it. When waste is not cleared, the system carries extra load that the nervous system, organs, and tissues must manage in the background. Heaviness, sluggishness, pressure, and reduced alertness can persist, even with good intake. Over time, accumulation without elimination reduces available capacity and makes recovery less effective. Regular movement supports clearance by keeping circulation, respiration, and mechanical motion active enough for clearing to occur rather than stagnate. Holding on can feel protective, but physically it functions as added weight the system must carry. Core Function 4. Grounding. Grounding is the capacity for attention and activation to remain oriented in the body, the senses, and immediate physical reality. In material life, it appears as practical engagement with daily needs. Home maintenance, money, food, and logistics are handled without avoidance, neglect, or rigid over-control. Reality is met through action, not through bracing. When grounding is present, the facts of life feel workable rather than threatening or draining. When this function is available, the body feels like a place a person can live from. Weight lands, breath moves, contact with the ground registers without effort. A person can sit, stand, walk, and pause without feeling disconnected, scattered, or compelled to keep moving just to feel present. Grounding at this level is not an idea or a technique. It is direct physical sensation. Pressure in the feet, the pull of gravity, the boundaries of skin, and the immediate reality of contact, posture, and space. In strained conditions, attention seeks relief by leaving the body and avoiding the facts of physical reality. One manifestation is practical avoidance, where a person delays looking at money, mail, health signals, or responsibilities, because contact with the facts creates immediate internal pressure. At the level of sensation, this can present as disorientation and disconnection. Coordination becomes clumsy. The ground feels distant, and the day is navigated without fully registering weight, contact, or place. Another pattern is conceptual substitution, where theory replaces direct contact with concrete needs and constraints. Material life is treated as beneath attention, and upkeep is deferred. Strain can also present as overactive grounding. Practical orientation is maintained through rigid management of concrete details. Planning becomes a brace. The next steps are run in advance and rerun. Supplies, payments, schedules, and contingencies are managed early and repeatedly. The environment stays functional, but it is carried through tightening rather than stable bodily contact. Orientation depends on control of logistics rather than settled contact with the body and ground. Polarity and Regulation. Earth operates through a structural polarity between sufficiency and threat signaling. On one side, the body registers that conditions are sufficient for continuation. Support is available. Load can be carried. Presence does not require constant self-monitoring. On the other side, The body registers threat and shifts into survival response. This can reflect instability, danger, or conditions in which capacity is exceeded. This polarity is not moral. Threat is not failure. Sufficiency is not virtue. These are signals about whether the foundation can hold what life is requiring. A functional earth does not mean permanent security. Conditions change. Regulation is the capacity to shift between demand and settling. Response must be proportional. Settling must be reliable. Dysfunction appears when the response becomes fixed at one pole. It either stays in threat signaling when conditions are sufficient, or it fails to adjust when conditions require a response. Earth balance is functional movement between the two poles. Earth expresses through a set of functional qualities when it is intact, and when it is strained through recognizable patterns of distortion and compensation. These patterns are not flaws. They are the system's adaptive attempts to preserve continuity when support feels unreliable. The full lists of Earth's functional qualities, its distortions, and its compensatory patterns are included in the written edition of the Seven Fields, available at the7fields.com. For this audio edition, we stay with the structure of the field itself. Integration note. Earth does not ask to be transcended, it asks to be inhabited. It is the foundation life stands on. It participates in the whole by remaining quiet and reliable, holding the conditions that allow feeling, action, relationship, expression, and understanding to occur without being overtaken by survival demand. When Earth is functional, presence is available by default, and attention is not consumed by basic securing. Earth provides the conditions that allow functions of the other fields to operate without distortion. What is carried at this level is personal and immediate. Some of it is inherited or environmentally conditioned, but it appears in the present as capacity. Whether the body can rest, whether resources register as sufficient, and whether continuity can be assumed. When Earth is strained, functions of the other fields still appear, but they are often recruited as compensation rather than expressed cleanly. Integrity at this level means Earth can carry life without depending on other fields to remain stable.